In this section, we'll be discussing the missile injury. The ballistics is a branch of forensic medicine that is dealing with the motion of the projectile in the air. Now, we have to keep one thing in our minds when we are discussing the missile injury, that this projectile is moving under the force of the gravity. So, how does it travel in the air? And its entrance in the body is again very important. What happens after the impact of the projectile on the human body? How does it affect the human body? It is again very important. So all of this phenomena and the mechanisms that are involving the movement of the projectile in the air and the effect after its impact on the human body are discussed over here. Now, wound ballistics is again very important. Working as a forensic pathologist is very important to concentrate on this fact that after the impact of the projectile with the human body, a lot of changes occur in the human body. Basically, any trauma that we're working on, may it be a road traffic accident, or let it be an abrasion or a stab wound or any lynching or an asphyxiating phenomena, asphyxiating deaths that we discuss, it's basically that the force of the deceleration or the acceleration acts on the human body, and it is basically causing the tissue damage. So that is basically what we are working with when we are basically working with this missile injury and how it occurs and why is it important for a forensic pathologist to know all these facts and the underlying mechanisms as well. Now, the mechanics of missile injury will be discussed over here in this section, and we'll also discuss the types of weapons. So basically, there are two types of weapons over here. First of all, there are the rifled firearms, and then we have the shotguns. Now, when we say we have the shotguns, it's basically that there are long, basically cylindrical portions of the gun, and it's basically two barrels of the gun, and they are sometimes placed side by side or up and above, and these are basically known as the shotguns, and they have smooth bores inside their cylinders. And then when we talk about the rifled firearms, basically there is a grooving phenomena inside the rifles, and so basically the bullet is going through a cylindrical axis and then it is moving forward, so it will basically cause more damage to the human body. So these are basically the two types of weapons that we'll be discussing over here in this section. And then we have the factors important for a pathologist. Now, after you come across any firearm injury or any wounds that you come across, what are the factors that are important, and how are you going to write down the autopsy reports in such missile injuries? It's again very important over here. So first of all, we'll be discussing the mechanics of missile injury over here. Now, the tissue displacement and disruption, of course, it's basically an accelerating or a decelerating kind of injury. Deceleration for the bullet that was already in an accelerating phase, and it's basically the force is equal to mass and acceleration. So it basically depends upon the acceleration of the bullet, that it is basically directly proportional to the amount of the damage that is going to occur on the tissues after the impact. So the disruption of the tissue basically depends upon these factors. Now, accordingly to this energy transfer phenomena that I was talking about, it's basically the heat, the noise, and the mechanical disruption that takes place at the same time when the bullet is impacted with the tissues. So it's basically all of these three phenomena, heat, noise, and mechanical disruption, that comes into play after the impact. So the mode of injury depends upon the shape and velocity. Again, the type of the weapon is again very important. If it's a smooth bore, as I was talking about, it is happening in the shotgun. And if it is a grooved bore, as it is happening in the rifled firearms, so the velocity will depend upon the type of the weapons used. And then the shape of the bullet is again very important. If it's of a conical shape, you'll observe that it is going to basically pierce into the air, and it is going to move faster than a less conical one. And then there is a possible deformation. So all of these things, all of these factors come into play when the missile injury takes place, and that we basically focus on whenever we are going to write an autopsy report regarding a missile injury. The solid organs, for example, the brain, are affected more than the spongy ones. Of course, because the decelerating or the accelerating phenomena are more prominent over here whenever we are talking about the solid organs such as the brain rather than the spongy ones, because they are more flexible or they are more pliable in their nature. Now, the types of weapons, they're again very important. We have basically the smooth bore weapons over here, and then we have the shotguns as well. The smooth bore weapons or the shotguns, basically they are placed in the same group. And as I've already told you, basically we have two cylinders that are lying side by side, and then they can also lie up and above. So basically the velocity will be a little less than in a rifled firearm, because in a rifled firearm over here, in a rifled firearm, we have country guns and the shotgun ammunitions. So basically, both of these shotgun ammunitions and the country guns are also included in the smooth bores one. All of these will have a lesser velocity than a rifled weapon. So a rifled weapon basically includes handguns and the rifles over here. And so basically they have more velocity because of their grooved structures inside. The bullet is going to move in a spiral motion, and then it is going to go with more velocity rather than when we compare it with a smooth bored gun. So the ammunition for the rifled weapons is again very important. Basically, when we talk about the ammunitions of the shotgun and the ammunitions of the rifled weapons, the structures involving, for example, the propellants, the wads that I'll be discussing in the next slide. So all of these will have a different composition, and that is again very important because the propellants and the primers, all of these basically tell us about the velocity of the weapons and the velocity of the bullets in the air. So basically the ballistics, as I've already told you, it is defined as the motion of the projectile in the air. So it depends upon the composition of the bullet as well as the type of the weapon it has been fired from. The factors important for a pathologist. Now, working as a pathologist, you should know what are the composition of a normal cartridge that is used in a rifled firearm. And basically, it depends upon, there is a shell case on the outer, it's just simple, it's just a shell case, and then we have a brass head and a rim over here. The inside composition is very important to know. Basically, there is a primer, and then it basically ignites with the gunpowder, and there is an ignition phenomena that basically propels the wads and the shots from these side. So it is basically the shots and the wads. So as you can see over here, there are small rounded shots over here, and as I'll be discussing the injuries caused by these shots, you will see that there is a main injury that is also known as the rat hole, and then there is a tattooing phenomena around the rat hole, and that tattooing phenomena is basically caused by these shots over here that are rounded structures over here. They are basically metallic in nature, and so they're going to cause the injury after their impact with the organs. So the weapon is smoothbore or rifled. It's again very important to know for the pathologist what kind of a weapon was used to cause the injury. The rifled muzzle velocity of the weapon is again very important. And then the nature of the projectile, so how it traveled in the air, and after it hit the victim, what injury was caused to the victim and what part was hit by of the victim, that is again very important, and that has to be documented in detail over here. Then the nature of the propellant is again very important. What kind of a propellant was used in the bullet, it's again very important, and the degree of the choke. So when we are discussing the weapons in detail, the rifled firearms are sometimes choked. So the choking of the gun is again very important. The barrel is narrowed to its end, and this narrowing phenomena is known as the choking of the gun. So there are basically a lot of types of chokes. There is a full choke, there is a partial choke, and that has to be documented by the pathologist. Then the range and the angle of the discharge is again very important over here. So all of these have to be documented by the pathologist, and it should be known to the pathologist what kind of a gun was used for this injury and what was the range of the gunshot. It's again very important just to document about the kind of injury that has occurred in the individual. So that is the end to this section. Thank you for watching sqadia.com.